bought sparklers for the 4th of July. He loves sparklers, and now he's leaving, and what are we going to do for the 4th of July?
There's a car show in Kenosha.
A car show? I don't want to go to a car show in Kenosha. I want 3 more months with my baby boy. And now they're gone because of your bull. Way to go, dumbass!
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a fuddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history.
I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study. I'll never get into Stanford.
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I got to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Welcome to the Sitcom Study, the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, what are we talking about today?
The Marvelous Mother.
The mother of sitcom mothers,
That's right.
I guess, is what we're here to determine. Yep. Mother's Day is right around the corner. Normally, this is the podcast where we have the patented format of tracking a particular trope over several different sitcom episodes. But this time we're doing things differently. We're doing a simple countdown. We're just going to take turns rattling off our top 5 sitcom moms. We'll compare and contrast. We'll discuss. Now, we've talked about this amongst ourselves very little other than saying, hey, it would be fun to do a sitcom mom countdown. Yes. So what is playing into this for you? Do you have any criteria? What sort of comes to mind when you say, what are the great moms of the sitcom world?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just sort of like how like nostalgia wise, how much it sort of reminds me of like my mom and my experience, or then the opposite of that. Like what were the things about these sitcom moms that I'm like, God, I wish my mom was like that.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. But not all of them. Some of them were just ones that I was like, yeah, that's a really good character. And I really enjoyed that as character as a mom. So.
Yeah. Totally. I think, I don't know if you focused on any specific kind here, because of course you've got moms that are regular cast members that you see every time.
Right.
And then you have moms that show up in season 4 as like,
right.
Oh, wouldn't it be funny if so-and-so played his mom?
We got the mom. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I
like Laurie Metcalf in Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. So looking over my list, I did actually end up with pretty much all season regular.
Yes,
regular,
me too.
But I was open to everybody.
With the guest stars, yeah. And there's been so many great examples of that, of like being able to come in, like Christine Baranski also on Big Bang Theory, and just be this like horrible psychologist that has used your child, Leonard in this case, as her, science experiment for his entire life.
Yeah, for the most part, I was the same. Certain things about characters reminding me of my mom played into it. A lot of times it is just, as we'll get into, there's billions of sitcom moms. There aren't that many that are, the funniest part of the show or the most interesting part of the show.
They're often the character that is like the much maligned wife of the, annoying comedian who got his own sitcom.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Harriet from Family Matters is probably not on your list, because she's just like a kind of bland character that they didn't do much with. And a lot of times that happens. So I'm especially sort of on the lookout for moms that really got to shine and got to be interesting or funny or something, relative to the other people in their cast. So, okay, let's start it off. You want to give me your first entry in the sitcom mom Hall of Fame?
my number 5. And this one was one that was a little bit outside of the box. It's more like aspirational, like what I really like the relationship that she and her daughter have. And so they are both adults in this sitcom. I'm going to see if you can maybe try to guess it.
Yeah.
They're both adults, and they live together, and they have a really fun kind of relationship where the mom is a little more salty. The daughter is also kind of salty, but the mom has all these one-liners.
Is this
zingers.
the show Mom?
It's not the show Mom. Good guess though, because I think both of the characters in Mom, Anna Faris's character and Allison Janney's character, are fun and interesting to play with. But no, this is Sophia Petrillo, Dorothy's mother in Golden Girls.
Yeah, of course, Sophia. Yeah, she had not crossed my mind, and yeah, that's a really good choice. She's just, I mean, for one thing, she's just such a sort of singular like creation as a character.
Yeah.
Just that whole way that they did her up and everything, how famously Estelle Getty was far from the oldest of them, and they just made her into that thing, and
this
she's very
tiny
funny.
little old lady, and then her daughter is, towering B. Arthur. You're like, how did this come out of that?
Yeah.
And she's just got all that personality, and I love how as she and her mother have gotten older, they're both in the retirement age. You've got Dorothy being like, Shady Pines, Ma. Yeah. And Sophia with always just like, Dorothy, you could never get a man. You were too manly, and like they have this fun sort of like insult-based relationship that it seems kind of grounded in a friendship and a love that I really, I respect and admire. And Jay knows, but for the audience out there, I'm very close with my mom. I definitely have a little bit of this like, oh man, wouldn't it be fun to be in the little old folks home with my mom?
Yeah. And that totally passes the test, the sort of mom Bechdel test of getting to be, interesting and funny. And what I've noticed about Sophia, since we've been watching The Golden Girls for the podcast, is how it's like a defining aspect of her character that she just wants to be included in things.
Yes.
Which is so...
It's like, don't leave me out!
Yeah, it's just so funny for, the lady that's supposed to be the oldest of these old ladies.
Oh, you little kids go have fun.
Yeah, you would think she'd be tired and doesn't want to do anything. And yeah, I love that like the biggest sort of capital in her life is just inclusion, is just like she just has FOMO, she just never wants to miss.
Don't treat me like the
adventures.
little old lady that does it, the fifth wheel. I'm part of this too, or the fourth wheel.
Yeah. No, that's a great pick. And of course, she played that character for years. All right. I like it. Okay.
Jay, seal of approval.
Yeah. Here's my number 5. Now, this is definitely on the sort of nostalgia side for me. This is, a sitcom that it's no secret that it's one of my favorites. This was a, afternoon after school stalwart for me. This is a mom with no last name because she is the mother to a son with no last name.
I was going to say, I think I know who this is.
So what do you do when you've got a show about a young man that was hired to help the family, and then for whatever reason, the mom of the family doesn't show up anymore?
The mom of the family wants to go raise her actual kids and not act anymore.
Yeah, and so you introduce a character like Lillian, no last name, mother of Charles from Charles in Charge.
That's right, Ellen Travolta.
Ellen Travolta, who, of course, spot on casting for Scott Baio's mom.
Well, she played his mom in something else,
yes,
too.
so much so that in the extended Baioverse, where if you want to believe that Charles is in fact Chachi from Happy Days, even though, he was a teenager in the 50s, and so you've got to do a little bit of like Better Call Saul age,
age reversal thing.
Yeah, but Ellen Travolta was his mom when he was Chachi.
Yep.
He had no last name then either. He was just Fonzie's little cousin or nephew or something.
Yeah, but he probably a Fonzarelli then.
Probably, but you never know. But by not identifying his last name, he could be Charles Fonzarelli in Charles in Charge.
He could be. He absolutely could be. He could also be Chachi's kid.
Oh, Oh, wow. I like that idea. Yeah, I like
Chachi
that
and
idea.
Joni had a kid,
But
and
then
it's
his
Charles
mom wouldn't be Ellen
from
Travolta.
Charles
She
in
would be
Charge.
Joni. She'd be Erin Moran.
Sure, she'd be, but then maybe he was raised by the grandmother because
Now
Chachi
it's
and
starting to fall
Joni
apart.
went away. Who knows?
Yeah, but look, Lillian, like I said, she participated in, parenting the kids, Jamie
Yes.
and Sarah or whatever, as needed. Like, she was just the perfect character for them to use as needed whenever they wanted her.
Whenever they needed, like, the Charles to have a little bit of moral guidance that wasn't coming from the grandpa who's a little bit zany.
Exactly. Oh, and a little bit grumpy. She's the opposite. She's very doting and caring.
Yes.
But yeah, throughout the show, she's the proprietor of Sid's Pizza Parlor as well as the Yesterday Cafe.
Yep.
They just keep throwing all kinds of different weird plot lines for her. What if she buys a diner? I don't know. And yeah, and she probably reminds me of my mom as much as any of these, just because of that doting sort of infinitely like, oh, you're the most handsome boy in school kind of thing, where she would always go,
You're the best.
Yeah, you've never done anything wrong, Charles, and I won't listen, and even though she's Italian and my mom was Jewish, but I feel like they have a very similar sort of vibe.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that.
So yeah, definitely Lillian, or Aunt Lillian as Charles's charges call her. She wasn't necessarily like pioneering new frontiers the way some of these other ladies were, but she was a very, very fun character, and she got to have fun, in those little ways. They would give her little slapstick things or funny little turns and stuff, or they would have her do little dances.
Well,
and
and costumes. Like, anytime there was some sort of strange conceit on that show where it was like, oh, somebody's, having a dream, she was always in some, wig and fancy costume and singing a song, and they really allowed her to just play and have fun.
Very game, silly performance. All right, moving on. Who is your number 4?
So number 4 on this one, I'm going to see if you can maybe guess it. She is the neighborhood's mom. She has her own kids, but they have a group of friends, and that group of friends is always at the house.
Is this the mom from the 70s show?
It is Kitty Foreman. Way to go. And Kitty Foreman has had a little bit of a resurgence in my my Instagram feed, because there's all of these really great scenes. There's a handful of these great scenes of her having like full menopausal meltdowns because she was of that age. And so my feed is just full of perimenopause nonsense, and she is constantly on it with all of her like, I need a wine, and where she runs down into the basement and she's like, 1 out of every 4 teenagers, 1 out of every 7 teenagers smokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to close my eyes and somebody better light this. And they all hands come in, and she is, lights her cigarette. And so she just had, she was trying to hold together a grumpy husband, keep him from beating the crap out of his kid. And then also was the mother to the neighborhood. You had Donna next door, whose parents were a little wacky. You had Fez, who was a foreign exchange student, so wasn't even living with his parents. You had Hyde, who was basically an orphan, he was on his own. And then you had Jackie, who she had a mom, but her mom was much more concerned about being good looking and finding another, rich husband. And then you had Ashton Kutcher's character Kelso, who we never really kind of find out his parental situation, just that I think he has a lot of brothers. That's all we kind of know about his family. And so, all that I remember anyway. And so, yeah, Kitty Foreman is their mom for all intents and purposes, and really is the one that kind of takes care of the neighborhood.
Yeah, no, and it totally, as you're saying that, and I'm picturing those sort of relationships where the kids are really close and the parents are kind of friends also. It's part of the fabric of that show's retro thing, because as time has gone on, I wouldn't say you don't have that anymore, but you have it less, where our relationships now, our friendships and the way we spend our time, it's just it's just less like local. It's less about who you happen to live near, who happens to live down the street, you know? And so, yeah, I can just picture them hanging out with that greasy guy next door, the Donna's dad, and like, you know, oh, who knows what the kids are up to? Yeah, they're going out to a movie or whatever. And that is totally the kind of thing, like, I grew up with that, where the your parents get together and then the kids go down in the basement and play Nintendo or whatever it is. And that totally tracks. It's funny, the reason why I didn't think much about her, besides the fact that I just wasn't super into that show, so I've only really watched it when we watched it for the podcast, but for me, through no fault of her own, she is overshadowed by the dad, Kurtwood Smith. Because I'm just such a fan of that guy. I was just watching him today give his amazing emotional performance in Dead Poets Society as the father of the boy who, spoiler alert, commits suicide because his dad, Kurtwood Smith, is too overbearing. And yeah, he's one of those guys that I just kind of go like, you know, Kurtwood Smith quietly had an amazing career. Like, he was Clarence Boddicker in RoboCop, one of the classic action bad guys of the 80s. He showed up the other day when I was watching Star Trek VI. He's that kind of actor who pops up in those sort of science fiction Star Trek-y things. And then he had this great spot for, you know, half a decade or more on the 70s show as the funny, you know, I'm going to put my foot up your ass dad, you know, and it's just like, he's one of those guys, people probably don't bother him on the street every time he walks out his door, but he's had this like amazing career and he's so distinctive. But to your point, the mom is very distinctive too.
Yeah, she is just, she's very funny. I remember many years ago just being so surprised that the front part of her hair is her hair in the show, and then the back part is a wig that's all set perfectly to look like that 70s style. And I just found that so fascinating that I was like, oh, they'll use part of your hair and then give like the back end a wig. Like, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And she, you know, she looked like, we're the same age as the kids on that show, basically. And so, you know, she was just always this like older woman. And then when I realized like, oh, no, she's, you know, they made her look older. She definitely isn't as old as Kurtwood Smith, who's in his 80s or early 90s. She is, you know, she's in her 70s, I think, or maybe late 60s now. Yeah. And so, you know, but yeah, she just always was this like older woman to me. And now I'm like, oh my God, like she's playing the age and she was the age that I am.
Yeah,
and I don't think I'm old.
Now we are the parents' age.
Exactly.
But yeah, and she famously had her romance with Giovanni Ribisi in Friends.
Oh my gosh,
she
that's
was
right.
the wife or girlfriend, and he called her like Mrs.
It was his teacher. Yeah, his former teacher.
That's great. All right, well, in that case, I'm going to continue this trend towards the retro, and I'm going to say this next pick for me, my number 4, sort of represents, this is as far back in time as I'm going, but really, I feel a little bit bad about that. Like, I'm skewing more towards recent characters because that's just what I'm more familiar with. But I do really want to shout out, I don't want to name them specifically, and I don't want to spoil any of your picks, but there are all of these great sitcom characters from the 50s, 60s, into the 70s that in various ways would play on the limitations of being a wife and mom at that time, right? And so this next pick for me is later than that in real time, but in terms of the time that the show was portraying, she would be a contemporary of your Donna Reeds and stuff like that. I'm talking about your basically quintessential TV mom for at least an entire generation, Mrs. C, Marion Cunningham from Happy Days.
Okay, good.
So she was, look, I didn't grow up watching Donna Reed or any of those, like that just wasn't, even on Nick at Night, that just wasn't really my thing. But as we have discussed,
June Cleaver, and all them,
but Happy Days for me was right there in the mix with Saved by the Bell and Charles in Charge, in the sense that they would play it on syndication. And even though I knew that it was made a long time ago and it took place even longer ago, I got into it because I was 14, 15. It's like, oh, it's about these boys trying to figure out how to impress the girls and everything, going on dates. And so I was absolutely all in. And I think that Marion Cunningham, I think she's a key part of the way the show sort of envisions the 50s, and her whole sort of peachy keen, wholesome deal is a big part of it. And I think as the show went on, not only did she do a great job of that sort of undermining thing, telling her husband, Tom Bosley, to sit on it or whatever, right. Adding in those little rascally moments. But I think specifically her relationship with Fonzie really became special, kind of in the way that like Sheldon and Penny's relationship on Big Bang Theory did.
That you wouldn't consider they're so opposite that they wouldn't be able to like find their connection.
Yeah, they're like on opposite ends of the stories, but then you kind of realize that, oh, she's like, Tom Bosley is kind of a square through and through, whereas Marion, like, she's just a square in the sense that she's a parent and she's the mom. Right. But she actually, like, she's able to just sort of see through his greaser, like, leather jacket air and see that, like, oh, he's just a nice kid. Yeah. And she's very, like, motherly to him. And she's not intimidated or put off by his sort of, like, streetwise ways. And likewise, he becomes very sort of respectful and protective of her.
Yeah, he kind of has a crush on her. He's like, hey, Mrs. C, you're looking good.
Well, and that's, of course, another dimension to it now where, like, so many of these shows, like, she might as well have been 100 years old when I was watching it after school. And now I look at it, I'm like, oh, Mrs. C, okay. Her name is escaping me now, the actress's name.
It's Marion Ross.
Marion Ross, right.
That's why I always get it confused because they're both named Marion, so I always think I'm getting her name and Mrs. C's name wrong.
Yes, but absolutely. She was, Tom Bosley was really pitching above his league, I think, when he scored, Marion Ross.
That is so interesting that you went with her. And I definitely considered her. I also considered June Cleaver as like a quintessential, the Beeves mom, right? Like I thought about those and Donna Reed as well. And what I kind of realized was that I don't know those shows well enough. And in the research, I was looking into Donna Reed, and I think that like what I'm kind of realizing is that we need to make a little bit more of an effort to watch at least one. We've never done Donna Reed on the podcast,
we did her
right?
Once. She was the one that met the baseball player who couldn't act well. Her son met the baseball player.
Yeah, but I don't know if that was if that episode or not. But anyway, doing the research for this, I realized like Donna Reed, there is a sort of like feminist bent to that like 1950s mom, her take on the 1950s mom that I didn't realize was there, having grown up so much later and just like thinking about, June Cleaver, Donna Reed, all of these like in one breath, like not really differentiating between them, not knowing. And so now I'm kind of like, oh, I want to know a little bit more. But yeah, I also, the Kitty Foreman was as far back for, in my timeline as well as where I go. But for the same reasons that you picked Mrs. Cunningham, I think I definitely considered those 50s moms because the moms that I'm talking about on my list that are, all within my lifetime, they only are here. They're only the characters that they are because those other moms came first.
Obviously, they're all standing on the shoulders of those previous ones. But yeah, for me, Happy Days was in the mix, like I said. So I felt like I had as much experience with her as with like the parents from Family Matters.
Yeah, I think that's great. All right, well, so I'm going to take a little bit of a turn here. Only in some ways. So this mom she is the mom, right? Like
she is the mom.
She is like in her show. That is her character. She's the mom. You know what I mean? There's like nothing else, but the other thing is that she is like just as wacky and as zany as her wacky family. Mm-hmm. And all of her kind of wackiness is just always kind of coming out in the overzealous momming that she does. She takes care of a stray raccoon in an alley behind their house and their restaurant. And she has 3 kids, so she's doing multiple things at once and trying to get to so many different events. And she cracks me up for so many ways. And I think you figured it out. It is Linda Belcher from Bob's Burgers.
Linda Belcher from Bob's Burgers. I don't know if I regret to inform you, that is my number 1 pick.
Is it really? That's amazing.
And I did feel a little strange about having an animated character for my number 1 pick, because that is just sort of a whole different vibe, and it's a different, it's just a little bit of an apples and oranges comparison. But yeah, I completely agree. I think that she's one of very, very few examples where the mom in the show really is in the running for the funniest character, the strangest character. She's
but amongst all of the crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like and it's like she's the craziest and the strangest in so many ways, but it's all through the like lens of mom love.
Yeah. Yeah, she, yes, her sort of misguided energy, or her sort of, like, a lot of her harebrained schemes come from, like, my relationship with my kids it's lacking because of XYZ, like me and Louise need to bond by doing this thing,
right.
Or Gene is going to
we're going to go on vacation and we're going to
Gene is going to be grown up before we know it, so I've got to do this thing with him or whatever. The other thing I'll say is that this isn't a character that necessarily reminds me of my mom. This is a character where their spousal relationship reminds me of the two of us. Yeah. And when we first started dating, that was kind of how I sold it to myself. It's a little bit like Bob and Linda,
Say more, because I don't know if I'm on board with this yet.
Well, you've seen the show, their energy of her just being like, and I'm gonna sing, and him being like, okay, Linda, all right, yes,
we're gonna do this, Bob.
Yeah, it really is more just the constant singing, and one of the
how can I ever put up with this woman? Well, if Bob can put up with Linda, I guess I can go on this 3rd date.
One of the funniest lines she has, I don't even remember the situation, but Bob is like, all right, we can do it, but, on these conditions, and, if you could keep the singing to a minimum or whatever. She goes, yeah, right, Bob, I'm not going to sing.
I was not expecting this turn, but I'm loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, of course, that makes her a little bit of a weird addition to this is that she's played by a man.
Right,
her voice,
of course. Yeah.
Her voice is John Roberts, but I guess that's neither here nor there. Yes, very, very funny, silly character. And Bob's Burgers has sort of quietly been one of the longest running sitcoms in the world.
Yeah.
It's always going to be behind The Simpsons.
Yes,
but and Family Guy for that matter. They've all been going forever. But really good pick. So I'm gonna sort of slide all of my other ladies up in my countdown as we continue.
I would say, we don't change your order. I think.
No, Linda's still my number 1, but I've still got 2 more ladies to talk about, obviously. But yeah, fully on board with that choice.
Yeah, nice. I'm so delighted that we had this. I was not anticipating that as the crossover. That's fun.
Yeah,
okay.
Neither was I.
So who's your number 3?
So my number 3. Where if Marion Cunningham was my last one, we're moving ahead in time now. And to me, this is sort of the answer to the Peachy Keen, Donna Reed, Mrs. Cleaver sort of thing. We're in the 90s, and we're getting a much more sort of down-to-earth, fully realized, fleshed out character that's not going to rely on formulas and tropes and cliches and all of those things, that's going to really take on like interesting, real stories. The whole family is going to be real characters, and we just kind of see what happens when, when stuff befalls their family. Roseanne is who I'm talking about.
Oh my goodness, you don't
Connor.
like that show though.
Well, I wouldn't say I don't like it. I'd say that I definitely don't have a ton of experience with it. And I didn't like it, or I wasn't interested in it as a kid, for sort of the same reasons that I'm lauding it now. It didn't have any crazy gimmicks, so when I was younger and it was first starting, again, this is the opposite of the, a family takes on an alien or something like that.
Yes.
No gimmicks,
so
no frills,
yeah.
very simple,
She's
low concept
female
show.
Archie Bunker.
Yeah, exactly. And it is very much, it's slightly less political, but I think it's in the tradition of All in the Family and those Norman Lear kind of shows where it's just working class people, a slice of life. And frankly, I didn't really get into it first time around until I was a certain age and Sarah Gilbert was a certain age. And then I was like, okay, now I have a crush on Sarah Gilbert. And so when it started getting into that and she started dating Johnny Galecki and stuff, I started being more into it. But even then, and this is again why I'm applauding the show now, it was about the family, but she is at the center of that world. And so it's like a little bit about the kids, a little bit, I think more so than most other shows, a little bit about the family friends. You've got obviously the Laurie Metcalf, the sister character, and then you have,
Sandra Bernhard.
Yep, and Tim Curry was in there for a few years.
Oh, I sort of vaguely remember that.
Tom Arnold was in there for a few years.
He was married to Sandra Bernhardt.
In the show,
yes.
Yeah, and so you have this little world where they're taking on these real world issues. One of the kids gets mixed up with drugs, or a friend gets divorced, or whatever it is, but they're
Parent
doing it.
loses the job.
Yeah, they're doing it in the opposite of the TGIF way. Like, it's not cheesy, it's just very sort of straightforward. And Roseanne herself has this very sort of natural, organic acting style where she's funny and she's very comfortable. We talked about when we covered the show how she'll kind of drop lines here and there, or sort of have these little imperfections in the way she performs it. And it all just kind of works, because it's just like, it's just a very different thing from like, oh, we're giving Jerry Seinfeld or Tim Allen their own sitcom, like it's that same thing of, a popular comedian, so we'll give them a show. But she really makes it like, life is hard sometimes. And like, this is kind of what it's like if you're just this lady, just this kind of random lady with this out of shape husband and these kids, and you're, it's TV shows that their house is still like gigantic compared to most people in their situation. But like your conditions are modest and you've got this kind of random job and
your pantry is messy.
Yeah. And it just really, it's just really one of the best examples of that, that opening scene where it's just going around the table. And I remember as a kid being perplexed by that, being like, why is that the theme song to the show? And now I kind of see that as them sort of like the mission statement of the show. Like, it's nothing fancy. This is just the family. Like, it's just,
we're just chilling.
Yeah. Like, we're just showing you the family eating dinner, and that's just kind of all this show is going to be.
Yeah.
And, notwithstanding that last season where they win the lottery and all that, it did such a good job of that.
Yeah. I don't remember a ton of examples of Roseanne momming in certain ways, but it's not that it wasn't there. And I think it's because of what you're talking about, how it was just kind of such a slice of life sort of thing. And yes, there were jokes and there was comedy, and just because, Roseanne herself is a funny person, and that would be what she would be like as a mom, you know what I mean? And so I think, yeah, there's definitely, under the radar in terms of like her motheringness.
Well, see, I would say, I bet if you watched it now, you might actually relate to it more than you remember, because it is one of these things where it's not from the kid's point of view where she's just an authority figure, nor is it strictly from the parents' point of view where it's like, oh, these kids are always a pain in the butt. It's like this really even thing where her kids, because they're teenagers for most of the show, especially again when I was watching it more in the later years, it's a lot of them fighting, arguing about issues to do with them dating their boyfriend and going on birth control and things like that. You know, in the same way you talk about you and your mother being kind of at each other's throats as teenagers and wanting your curfew to be later and stuff like that. I feel like there is a lot of that where it's not.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that with Becky.
Yeah, Becky has a whole storyline about, I don't know if it's moving in with the boyfriend or getting pregnant or something.
I think there were both, yeah.
Yeah, and then that same thing continues with Sarah Gilbert. And so, yeah, it's a lot of like, again, it's not like, how are you going to talk to these kids about sex? What? You know, it is more of like, no, this is what it's like to have teenagers and you're constantly sort of negotiating and arguing with them.
Yeah, and sometimes you're just over it and you yell at them and you feel bad about it, but no, I think you're probably right. I was trying to think back because I was remembering that there was this like emotional moment in one of the Roseannes that we watched for the podcast.
Yeah, but the Christmas one when the daughters wants to go with the boyfriend.
But that's what it was. It was Denise's moment. It was like her coming home. Isn't that Sarah Gilbert's character?
Darlene,
you're right. It's Darlene. Yes, Darlene, not Denise. Okay.
Denise is a Cosby show.
Yeah. So there's that emotional moment. It's not Roseanne's. It's Darlene's. She has witnessed her boyfriend Johnny Galecki's mom hit him.
Oh, yeah.
And so she comes home and, you know, they had this big fight and then they were all snowed in different places. And, you know, Roseanne is ready to like yell at her because she stayed out all night and, you know, got to stay over at the boyfriend's house. And now she's going to be just like her slutty older sister. And Sarah Gilbert just like comes in. Darlene just like comes in and hugs her and is like, you know, I love you, Mom. And they have that moment. But I don't remember that being on Roseanne's side. I remember that being on her side.
True, but I think for the most part, the same way that as a teenager, I kind of tuned out because it's like, oh, if I watch these sitcoms to get a few laughs and relate to the characters, there's not quite enough of the kids. Whereas now I think we would watch it in that spirit. I mean, we're not parents.
To relate to the parents.
Yeah, if you were the parents of teenagers, you'd be like, yeah, this is what it's like. You got this crappy job. You got these kids that don't listen to you. And yeah, I think we would connect with it more like that. But just Roseanne being such a singular presence, you know, looking and sounding the way she did and being able to keep that going for so long as so many other, you know, Ellen or so many other comedians were given sitcoms and they came and went. And she really made something of that. And the savvy of casting John Goodman as the husband, you know, when he would turn out to be like one of the greatest actors ever, you know.
Right. Well, and when he was cast in that, he had already done some of those Coen Brothers movies.
Yeah, like one or two, absolutely. And it's still, I'm not saying that they didn't have any clues, but they just, I mean, and then you go down the line, Laurie Metcalf.
Like what?
Very, very smart casting.
Let me go find some brilliant theater actors and bring them in.
Yes, breaking down barriers and just generally one of the most memorable sitcom moms ever.
All right. Well, so now we're up to my number 2. And this one and my number 1, I went back and forth on for a little bit, but really, I think my number 1 was just had to win. But this one was a top contender, and this is the sitcom mom that most reminds me of my mom and my childhood growing up. Do you know it just from that?
Oh, wow. The sitcom mom that reminds you of your mom
and
No.
like my childhood growing
she-
up and like what our house was like, what our family dynamics were like in terms of like just how open we were. And we always, we always talked about everything. And it never like the divide between parent and child in terms of like, the way you always talked about, like, you didn't want to watch shows where it wasn't just about the kids because there was too much stuff about the parents. Like, we all watched TV together. So our favorite shows as a family were these shows that were the exact opposite of that. They were about both the parents and kids and had a balance of each. And I really loved those.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank here.
This is Elise Keaton.
Oh, of course. Well, I should have just known because you like that show a lot in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought about her too, and I love that show, and I love like the sort of presences of those parents, but I did struggle a little bit to like what exactly is her deal,
She was one of an early example of a working mom.
Yeah.
And there were those episodes, there was a couple episodes there where she had always worked from home, and now she was an independent architect, and her office was in their kitchen. And then she got an offer to go back into corporate and go work for a firm, and she takes it. And now she is, Jennifer's grown in middle school. So now she's like out of the house and working at a job. And so it was her there was an episode about her, giving up her own company and giving up all that freedom that she had.
Yeah.
And then also I think there's another episode that was about her going back to work and finding her footing in a corporate environment again after having, just been a mom in quotes for so long, even though she was running her own business and still working. And like all of the prejudices you face from being that and so there's all of that. And then also, her kids having sex for the first time and like navigating the different ways that boys are treated in this world versus girls are treated in this world. Having the older two kids being so close together in age and one being a boy and one being a girl. And then once her corporate career is established and just sort of rolling along in the background, they're like, let's have another kid. Yeah. And because real life actress Meredith Baxter Birney got pregnant. And so they wrote it in. She was having another baby. And then we get a new kid. So we get to see her be mom to the young ones.
Yeah. Yeah, we only watched one episode that had the little kid, his first day of school. But she's really good. She definitely embodies that sort of like, she has that wisdom to her. But I think so much of the time her role is really to be a comic foil to Alex.
Yes.
So much of it, I can just picture them.
I mean, all those characters,
yes,
that's what they end up being. He just is such a good actor.
But they, it's not like Urkel where they totally blow it out of proportion, but he very much becomes the focus of the show.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is, Michael J. Fox saying something like, well, Mom, women were born to be in the kitchen, and her kind of rolling her eyes and being like, oh, Alex, who told me? Or something.
Yes,
just
exactly.
Like making some sort of like, sarcastic remark or whatever. And so, yeah, it's a bummer that she didn't get to do more, but at the same time, that's sort of like, it's the 80s. That's what those shows sort of were. Like
it's definitely what that show became. I think there was a lot more in seasons 1 and 2 and even 3 where there weren't fully Michael J. Fox centered episodes where they're like the main story was another character and he got to be more, as a part of the ensemble. But definitely as time goes on, it's the Michael J. Fox show.
Well, and it's a trope that we should do one of these days. Either the mom going back to work or the mom like wanting to be a singer is something that happens in a lot of these shows.
That happened to her.
And I feel like that happened to Doogie Howser's mom too, and the Fresh Prince's
It's like the thing they gave up in order to become a mom.
Yes, which is often singing.
You're all about the singing today, Jeff.
Yeah. I think, it's just that I feel like the mom from Family Ties and the mom from Growing Pains, if you were to like switch them.
Funny that you're saying that.
Yeah, I don't think I would notice.
Oh my gosh, it's so fun. So I went back and forth on Joanna Kearns as well, Maggie Seaver. The only reason I didn't land on her is because that show is less on, it's more the TGIF version, like you were saying. Like it's less on the parents as full characters. Not that they aren't, they're way more full than like a Full House type situation. But yeah, I just, in terms of, and also it's the thing of like, the she's the hippie and she was the flower child, totally. And that's like so my mom.
And just brick by brick, like, sorry, no offense to the Growing Pains cast, but like, who's the guy? Gross, David Gross, Michael Gross. Who's the dad on Family Ties?
Michael Gross, yeah.
Michael Gross versus Alan Thicke, Michael J. Fox versus Kirk Cameron. Like, sorry, on every level, Family Ties is wiping the floor with Growing Pains. But yeah, solid choice. Okay, so we've spoiled my number one. So this is going to be my last entry here, my number two, which I will say, kind of like you, I was going back and forth between my number one and two, especially because this lady is a flesh and blood person, and I thought it would be cleaner to have that be my number one. But ultimately, I thought that Linda was just so singular. But the person that I'm about to name is also an extremely singular character. Also sort of breaks the norm of having a very, very strong case for being the funniest character in the cast, while also being a mom. This is a situation where we have a mom of adults, so we don't really get to see what she was like as the mom of children, but it's very funny to sort of speculate about that, because this is a family where, kind of like you were saying about some of the other shows, like Bob's Burgers, every character is completely, wild and weird and crazy in their own way. And this one may be the weirdest and wildest of the bunch. I'm talking about Moira Rose from Schitt's Creek.
Oh my God, great pick!
The dearly departed Catherine O'Hara just really gave this character so much, just so much juice, just so interesting. She gets to be the wackier spouse, just like Linda does. And yeah, that whole way of talking and the
she
whole way
invented.
Yeah, and what's so good about that show, I think all the great ensembles are like this, where every combination of characters has its own magic. Eugene Levy and, the daughter, or the two siblings, or, they each are hilarious in their own way.
Yes.
And you can imagine, the way that she bonds through the kids, she bonds with the kids through the vapidness and the shallowness and the excessive privilege and being out of touch. And it's funny the way they all sort of share these really bizarre priorities and stuff that make them totally out of sync with the other people in their little Schitt's Creek town. But then she has all these other layers of weirdness that the kids don't have. Right. So they get to be sort of aghast at the bizarre things that she's doing. And yet they're still sort of on board with her in some ways, because they're all these weird Hollywood, crazies.
Formerly uber wealthy.
Yeah.
Billionaires. Yes. So that is so great. I think what I kind of was picking up on and what you were talking about was her different relationship with each of the people in the family. And I always thought it was so interesting. There was one episode about how she and her daughter aren't necessarily super close. She and David are really close, but she's not as close with Annie Murphy's character. And so there's this episode where it's I'm gonna we need to try to get close. Why don't we have we need a better relationship? And it just falls to bits, and she's just no, because she's annoying. No, and I just think it's so they're a fun. That's a really great choice.
I love the storyline later in the series where she gets involved in the Crows movie. Yeah. It's just such a great example of like, you know, it's really like that. Like if you're some actor that, you know, had some success years ago and now you still want to work and you end up having to sort of like hitch your wagon to like, oh yeah, I'm in the Children of the Corn Part 5 as the evil witch lady or whatever. And the way she would have to like gin up this enthusiasm for this ridiculous project and talk about it as though it was this great comeback
this
for her.
Piece of art. And she was so excited to do it.
And then the rest of the family has to get on board with it. Yes. And just the way that she, like you're saying, she and David can relate to this weird sort of like fashionista mindset that they have. Very, very funny.
And then it all kind of comes back around full circle, right? Because yes, she doesn't have this like super tight relationship with her daughter, but that allows Annie Murphy's character to become her press agent and build a whole company because she's doing such great PR for her mom. And the reason they're able to have that good professional relationship is because they have a love for each other that they can't express in another way.
Yeah. And it's just so great, like for Catherine O'Hara to have that role at that point in her life. Like it's one of the rare examples where she is not like Moira Rose having to do the Crows and go to the horror conventions and stuff. Like it's so rare.
Which you would totally think about. Oh yeah, that mom from Home Alone. What's she doing now?
Yeah.
She's killing it. That's
exactly.
What she's doing.
Yeah. Again, talk about a great career like Kurtwood Smith. Like to have those great performances, to never totally be like top of the marquee famous, but have that like super solid and beloved career. And then to end up having like arguably your best work in your 60s or 70s. Like it's really, really great.
She has a beautiful life. And I think well said.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah. All right. It all comes down to this. The number one that hasn't been spoiled yet. So like I said, with my number two, you know, I went back and forth on these, and there is just something, we don't get to cover this show very often on the podcast because of circumstances around the guy who played the father on that show. This show and Family Ties were what we watched together as a family every week. This was one of my favorite shows growing up. I very often feel like I grew up with the Huxtable kids. I loved that. I loved the Cosby Show. And Claire Huxtable, another example of the mom who can have it all, right? Which we've seen is way harder than she made it look back in those days. But it was, you know, it's TV in the 80s, an idealized version of life. She's an attorney, and she's got 5 kids? Yeah.
And so,
depending on when you're
3,
talking
4,
about.
5. Yeah, she's got 5 kids. And she, you know, she's doing it all. And on top of it, she's got a ridiculous comedian of a husband as well that she's trying to wrangle. Yeah. But she didn't get forced into that sort of like corner butt of the joke character.
No.
She holds her own, and is also another example of like leading with love but firmness. And so Claire Huxtable is my number one.
Wow, yeah, that's a solid choice. That's one that like I feel like I watched the Cosby Show from time to time as a kid, but I was never super into it. I don't really have, like, I can picture Felicia Rashad and her sort of like stately, you know, she's got that like Sigourney Weaver thing.
She's very regal.
Yeah, yes. She just projects intelligence and dignity and composure and stuff.
She's got class.
Yeah, and I can sort of imagine her like kind of sitting down with one of the kids and being like, now, Rudy, what, you know, did you tell a lie or something like that? But yeah, I guess I didn't watch it enough for it to really make an impression on me. You know, it's unfortunate that the Cosby Show you know, it's so important, obviously, in the way that it, you know, it just sort of continued that tradition of making black casts and black families much more mainstream and sort of, you know, just plugging that into the, you know, mainstream culture. And just so much, just sort of inclusion and diversity and everything. And yet, we're probably not going to talk about it on the show anytime soon because it turns out that many of the people that we once appreciated are horrible monsters.
That's right. Yay. But if nothing else, I think countdown show like this, we're not watching episodes.
Yeah.
We're not giving money to the legal fund of a known rapist. And so we can 100% mention that Claire Huxtable and Felicia Rashad's characterization. Felicia Rashad, obviously I was a child when I was watching that. I had no idea she was this brilliant theater actress and that she would continue to have exactly what you're saying, this sort of like grande dame presence in the, in so many spaces throughout her, up until now. And I think that it's nice to be able to call her out and say, that was a really great mom character. I loved you. Sorry, we don't get to watch that show.
Yeah. And now, she has to go down with the ship like all these other people who are in a movie or a show by a guy that turns out to be a schmuck.
Well, and for her, it's like particularly challenging, right? I think she does speak out about it, and has been asked, obviously. And she, she's not full-throated necessarily in her defense of Bill Cosby, but she is like, that wasn't my experience with him, and we will always have a connection, you know?
It's just going to be the same thing with like Diane Keaton and Woody Allen and stuff. Yeah. It's like you can't just will somebody to hate somebody that they worked with closely for many, many years. Like they're, people are different with different people, you know?
No,
and
it's true.
You can't,
I do know that for people that don't have any connection with that show or that time or anything like that, I think it is easy to kind of write someone like Felicia Rashad off as like, well, she doesn't care about, she's not condemning him for his misdeeds. So then we're not going to, cast her in things or, we're not going to celebrate her. And so the, saying that she's going down with the ship in a certain way, it's not just that like people don't watch her work anymore. It's that her future work is now critiqued because of that relationship. And that is a bummer. Yeah,
it sucks. Yeah, you wake up one morning and read in the newspaper that this horrible stuff happened. It's like, what am I supposed to do? It's not my fault.
Oh, great.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that cheery note.
Couldn't have ended on Linda Belcher or Moira Rose. They were much more uplifting.
Well, that's true. But yeah, those are our favorite moms. And let's be on the lookout for more great moms, right? Maybe next year we'll do a Father's Day countdown. But this is good. I like that despite our overlap sort of, trumping my last entry. I like that we kind of surprised each other.
Yeah,
and that in both cases.
I've been delighted by these.
I didn't
choices.
think about Sophia. I definitely didn't think about Claire Huxtable.
I 100% didn't think about Moira Rose, but what a good choice.
Yeah, this was fun. All right, so much for the all-time great sitcom moms. What are we talking about next time? That is the biggest mystery of all, and we will all find out the answer next week. Until then, we will consider this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The Sitcom Study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.